All right. Well, we are here continuing to talk with Vietnam veterans 50 years after the official end of the Vietnam War. And I'm joined today by a very special veteran, Mr. Ed Johnston. I have a fun story to tell about him because we actually spent an entire weekend together in DC on an honor flight trip. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me again and tell us your story again and share a little bit more.
Glad to be here, and I'll do my best to tell you good stuff.
Well, first we have to talk about Honor Flight because that's kind of where we made the connection and also learned about your story and what you did in the Vietnam War. But I want to go back to that trip for just a second. You got really emotional at the Vietnam Wall that day, and you said that that trip was extremely healing for you. Why is that?
Um, the wall is a very jerking situation. You know the names are there, and you were as close a friend as you could have to some of the veterans that went down at that time. And every time I've been at the wall, I've had to have a little assistance getting away from her just because it weak knees me. You know, I really feel bad for those men's names that are there and women. And it's just one of those, it's sort of like coming out of the baptism, you know. Uh, you feel great that moment. And then you get up to the end of the wall and you have that feeling again that you're relieved. And I talked to those people many times in my own life out here amongst us, trying to tell them what you're missing. And yeah, there's a lot of good men on that wall.
And there were two particular teams that you wanted to visit that day. And we'll talk about them in just a second. But I want to talk about what you did in the service and obviously why it was so important for you to find those teams. So I understand you were drafted, you were in the Army, but you were an Airborne Ranger. And for folks that don't know, what is that?
That's an insane young teenager. Uh, Basically, you just get the feeling that you're invincible, and you're not, but you get that feeling and you keep it. And you do dangerous, a lot of seriously dangerous stuff. And you do it because it feels like fun to you. Uh, I was about an idiot when I was in the military for all the stuff I did. But learning how to jump out of airplanes, carrying extremely heavy loads of ammunition on your back, and going way out away from everybody, and anybody you saw out there was the enemy. And I went out basically with six man teams, and you don't want to go jumping on a whole lot of the unfriendlies because there's just six of you, and you can't do very much to 500 of them. But if we got it down to 20 and under, yeah, there's fair game big time.
Let's talk about some of the missions that you were on. You don't have to go into too much detail about, specific ones, but just kind of an overall view.
Well, there was this ridge out in the DMZ called the Rocky Ridge, and very dangerous area. It was full of NVA bunker complexes, and the Huey'd come in, the tail would feather, and you'd get out rather rapidly, and he wanted gone quick too, which was best for everybody because they pinpoint where that helicopter's coming down, and they know who to go looking for. And Rocky Ridge was a nasty little place. The Ashaw Valley, I went in there on one mission, and there was the old French road was there, plain as day, which in the probably back at the turn of the century, 1900, this road was there because somebody always owned Indochina, and they had to have some way to move the goods, be it ox cart or elephant or on foot mostly. And French Road was always high traffic, and it was never friendly traffic. Uh, the only mission I went to there, it was hot, and I'm glad we got out safely. But we had to run, and we ran, and we ran. We'd stop and can you get us yet? Nope, too many Oscars around you, and that was a situation on every mission, getting off the Huey and getting back on the bird was uh, it was worse than scary. At the time, it was thrilling. Now that I've had many years to think about it, I just keep saying you was a idiot, and but I liked it. I'm sorry, I did. It was an adventure that was nothing else is the same after it. Every mission was different, but it was all very similar.
And let's talk a little bit about the company that you were in. When I first met you, you had on your Papa Company shirt, but you were telling me that it's a pretty small company and a pretty close group of men, right?
Papa Company got started in February of '69. Up until that time, all Ranger units were called LRPs, Long Range Reconnaissance Patrols. And boom, suddenly the LRPs woke up, went to bed as LRPs, and they woke up as Rangers because of the way the government handled the situation. And Papa Company was all the way as far north as you could go and still be in a friendly area, north of Quantree at Camp Red Devil, and 8 to 10 clicks out of the DMZ or the border, according to which way you looked and traveled. Um, over a period of 2 years, that's how long the company lasted into '71. We had roughly 250, 260 men come through the company, officers and enlisted. And we were never allowed to have over 60 men at one time. And when I got there, I don't think there were 60 men in the unit that could go to the field. Uh, as best as I can remember, there were several wounded men that were convalescent to go back to the field, but a lot of times when you got wounded, you went on to Japan after the Nang Hospital or whatever. And from Japan, they either sent you to Walter Reed or discharged you, is my understanding. A lot of the men would be there today and go out on a mission, and you'd never see them again. Uh, some of them were KIAs. We had a high percentage of KIAs versus the number of men we had in the unit. Best as I can recall, I think we lost 34 men. Uh, some of those men, 4 or 6, were door gunners on Hueys that had been in Papa Company and volunteered to get to be a door gunner,
Mhm.
which is even a little further insane than I ever got. And then we had 2 teams totally shot down out of the sky and 6 men and 4 men helicopter crew. And out of those 2 teams, we had one sole survivor out of each time. Smitty, he was on Team 1516. That was Sergeant Dow's team, and they went down, I don't know, I'm going to say December the 20th, 21st of 69. Uh, made the Christmas holidays really rough. Sergeant Dow and I had gone through basic AIT and jump school together and became good friends during that, I don't know, 15 weeks, 20 weeks. I don't know how long the training was out of my head at the moment. But we buddied up pretty good, and he saw me when I got to Papa Company coming into the gate and recognized me immediately. Him and another half a dozen men were out in front of the company headquarters and playing football, of course. Well, he seen me and he threw me a pass as I come into the gate, and I caught it. Come on down. He welcomed me in. He took me straight on in to Captain Luke B. Ferguson, introduced us, and said, "You want this man here, sir?" And told him a little bit about me. Well, Dow went out. Captain Luke B. talked to me a few minutes and explained to me that everything you ate, drank, or needed to ammunition wise you carried on your back. You didn't have sleeping bags or tents. You got one poncho liner, which was a very thin nylon blanket, and that was your bedroll. And the bedroll turned out to be your best friend there because it couldn't keep you dry, but it could keep you warm during that rain. And you could be into 120 degrees and then boom, it goes to 70. It's like zero here and 12 foot of snow. Uh, but the old poncho liner, I still have mine. I won't ever get rid of it. Hopefully they'll bury me. Uh, that's the only thing you had that was your possession. But anyway, the next team, Chris Side's team, I don't know, September, October of 70, they went down. And one lone survivor there, he lives up in Rhode Island or something. He quite famous for writing women's romance models, Dave Sloan, and he has now written a book about that mission that was so fatal. And the other lone survivor, Smitty, he's out in Arizona with, he's got a son or a daughter out there, and that's the reason he's out there, and he needs somebody watching after him. And Sloan does too because he's uh, Parkinson's disease he's got. Smitty is just crazy. You know, he still talks same to me, but you never know which end of the target he's on. But yeah, I needed to see those teams again. And when you touch your names on the wall, their faces very familiar again. And you remember the good times you had drinking or singing songs. Everybody over there, somebody always had a guitar being played. We'd sing every religious country rock and roll song that anybody knew, whether we knew it or not. You know, we might get 2, 3 words, and that's all of it any of us knew. But it was a lot of fun when we could have fun. Most of the time, you went out on a mission, and they were 3 to 5 days long. And when you came back in, you were supposed to have 24 hours off. Well, that happened often. Sometimes, though, you came in and you resupplied yourself with food, and water, and ammunition, and got back on another bird, and away you went again. It just all depended on the enemy movement as to how many of us could be out there. Uh, I know the company got down to under 40 several times, and I think when I left, there was 18 men able to go to the woods. I was extremely lucky. I never got wounded. Got cut by elephant grass. That was the worst injuries I ever got. Uh, Wounded men, you number one, stop the blood as best as you can and make sure they're still breathing. Uh, and then you worry about the other stuff. How we gonna get them out of here? What's happening next? Uh, had very good team leaders. Most of them had been through basic AIT jump school, Ranger school, NCO school, and they were staff sergeants, E6s usually, highly trained individuals. I would follow Sergeant Garris through hell, and did. He's of Minnesota somewhere. All of us are way into our 70s, and none of us are in good health. The Agent Orange cancer has really took its toll on a lot of my brothers, and it's working on me. The VA just told me today. So another adventure over there for the scalpel.
Well, we'll take a break right here and continue talking with Mr. Johnston in just a few moments. All right, well, we are continuing our conversation with Mr. Ed Johnston. He is a Army veteran. He served in Vietnam and he was an Airborne Ranger. And so, again, thank you for continuing to talk with us. But we just left off on the fact that Agent Orange has had a major impact on your life still 50 years after this war.
Agent Orange, uh, just strictly opinion, sits dormant in us for X number of years, and then boom, there it is. And it could be any form of cancer. It affects our hearts, our lungs, brains, anything. Bone cancer has been terrible amongst some of us. I have been extremely lucky, and I have not had any full-blown cancers as of yet. And I have another lesion on my back that the surgeons are going to have to look to right away. It probably isn't anything real serious, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of men, the Parkinson's diseases, and that's a bad thing to have. You lose your physical and your mental abilities, is my understanding of it. And Agent Orange, not a person that was in 100 miles of South Vietnam is not affected by Agent Orange. It's everywhere. The people out at sea got the wind vapors of it, and very nasty chemical. There again, our government knew what they were doing, but they didn't give a damn who they sprayed. And it's affected the generals down to the privates. Doesn't matter who you are, where you were at, whatever you drank and ate over there had Agent Orange dioxin in it. And it's just not a pleasant chemical, and should be one of those ones that the recipe is lost forever. Uh, Hopefully, there's no stockpiles of it anywhere, but there probably is. Um, that's all I'm going to tell you about Agent Orange. I hate stuff.
Well, as we are getting ready to approach the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, what do you want people to know about the Vietnam War and your service and the sacrifices that were made for it?
Um, the fall of Saigon wasn't important to me in my lifetime at that time. Uh, I had had my re-indoctrination to the world, which was rude, evil, and mean. Most people did not like veterans. There was a strong anti-war thing going on while I was there and when I come home and afterwards longer. Um, I got to where I wouldn't even admit I was a veteran, let alone Vietnam or anything else, just because it caused so much controversy. And there are people out there that don't, still today, 50 years later, that still have that same attitude that I understand that they didn't like the war. Okay. I didn't like the war. I could have run away to Canada, but that just was never my style. Uh, I did what I had to do, just like a lot of other men and women. And all we ask for is we don't need your thank yous, we don't need your hugs. We appreciate every one of them, but just smile and say, "Have a good day." You know, let's forgive and keep on going. Number one's what I guess I'm trying to say. But yeah, it's been a hell of a readjustment. It just the fall of Saigon. I watched part of it on TV where all those people were struggling to get aboard the helicopters to get out to the ocean. And the ones that got left behind, the Vietnamese that tried to help us back in those days, I hate they got left. And I'm quite sure the majority of them went through an extreme communist reindoctrination. Uh, I'm sure a bunch of them didn't survive it, but that was 50 plus years ago. And I have probably, well, I know I have talked more about Vietnam since Honor Flight in October to the public than I ever have. When we get together for a Ranger reunion rendezvous, you find the men you were in country with, and those are the ones you express yourself to, and you listen to their problems. And that has been the best help to me over the years, is getting to see my brothers and remembering, trying to forget, just trying to heal and get over it. War is a nasty thing. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's a cruel punishment.
Well, Mr. Ed, thank you so much for sharing your story with us again and continuing to be vulnerable with us because I know it's a lot to continue to unpack years later, but we appreciate you for joining us for this.
I'm glad I could be here and do it. Thank you very much.
Mhm. All right. Well, that is the end of this part of our series as we continue to talk to Vietnam veterans and hear their stories 50 years after the war was over.